How would you die on each Star Wars planet? Today I'll be answering just that, going over 20 different planets with each getting more and more terrifying, because not every planet is Mustafar. However, even the most innocent planets like Naboo contain deadly threats. While yes, the planet of Naboo was a paradise of scenery, culture, and peace, its underwater core contained a dark secret. Under these waters existed multiple predators that could easily eat you alive. This includes the Oppo sea killer, the Colo claw fish, and the Sando aqua monster. What about a planet that was made up of nothing but ocean? That's right, I'm talking about Kamino. Here the environment was nowhere near as disturbing though as the Kaminoan people who genetically modified themselves after the Great Flood that swept their planet. So if you had a business deal with them, then they would probably be completely chill. However, if you got on their bad side,
well then you are lost!
Yes, exactly, Obi-Wan. After their genetic modification, they actually got rid of all empathy, which means they would have no problem hiring a bounty hunter to take you out. Most of these planets could be solved by simply getting rid of their scum and villainy. Unfortunately, our next planet is Corellia, which was far from clean. While much of this planet was covered in urban areas like Coronet City, this came at a vicious price. If visiting during the Imperial era, you would be at a constant risk from the crime syndicates like Lady Proxima's White Worms, as well as a dangerous political landscape that often relied on shady deals and bloodshed in the streets to make ends meet. This means, civilian or not, you could be killed by just walking the streets minding your business. But not all planets had such privileges as, actual cities. Utapau was one of these, which was basically covered in death traps. If you were unlucky enough to find yourself on the surface, you could be forced to face the tribal Amani, who were considered dangerous by the Utai government. Also, did I mention they were 2 meters tall and could curl into a ball to roll around and had staffs covered with skulls? And if you did somehow make it to the sinkhole establishments of Utapau, then an even deadlier threat awaited you in the form of the Nos monster, which lurked in the depths of the pits and was a very effective predator. Fun fact, in a deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan was nearly killed by one of these after his fall during Order 66. Don't worry, it's in the novelization if you want to know what happens. And if giant rolling balls of death aren't enough, then what about the giant running fleas known as the Gut Car from the planet Ryloth? But hey, just bring a good old blaster rifle, right? Wrong. These bugs had blaster-proof casing and literally included the humanoid Twi'leks in their regular diet. Although the one redeeming factor about Ryloth, if you survive the man-eating fleas that is the people who were at least welcoming to outsiders. Well, in comparison to the Tusken Raiders of Tatooine, that is, who were not only tribal, but also at times cruel in their lifestyle. Anakin Skywalker experienced this firsthand when his mother Shmi was brutally attacked, beaten, and then killed by the Tuskens. Also, the scorching heat of the planet would be enough to knock you out without some good blue milk. And you'd never expect the center of civilization to be scarier than this wasteland, which also hosted the Palace of Jabba, by the way. However, Coruscant had a side that might make you rethink getting an Imperial office job here. I'm looking at you, Cyril. In the underworld of this planet existed thousands of levels that progressively descended into darkness and chaos the lower they got, with even zombie-like humanoids reported here. So what's the exact opposite of a city planet? That's right, a swamp planet in the middle of bumfrick nowhere, aka Dagobah, which just so happens to be extremely strong in the dark side. Not only was it covered in uninhabited swamps, but it also held the Cave of Darkness, which was surrounded by an unshakable feeling of dread, but also a host of dangerous plants and creatures. So if anything, you would probably go completely mad trapped on this planet. But if this planet was so strong in the dark side, then why did Yoda choose to exile here? Well, think about it. If a powerful Jedi presence is easy to detect by the Sith, then why wouldn't they want to go somewhere that already has a strong presence to mask their existence? Although you'd be wishing for the lack of substantial life forms on Dagobah if you found yourself stranded on Endor. Don't let the scenic forests and remote position in the galaxy fool you. After dark, this planet could turn into a complete nightmare. While many fans are familiar with the savage Ewoks, who had no problem killing and eating humans they discovered in their territory, as was the case with the stormtroopers at the Battle of Endor, but a far more dangerous creature lay within. This is the wild Gorax, who were up to 8.6 meters or 28 feet, and known to often attack Ewok villages and hunt them down. They had immense strength and could uproot entire large trees with their strength. The only creature scarier than this that I can think of is the Acklay. Good thing there's no planets where they're just, running around all over the place, right? Oh, yeah, in case you are not an OG Battlefront 2 vet like me, okay, that's a lie by the way, but anyway, the planet we are talking about is Felucia, which not only had terrifying Acklays, but also massive jungle rancors, as well as a high humidity, which allowed the diseases of the planet to spread quicker. Basically, every single plant and animal is doing everything in their power to kill you as soon as you land. Here's what the 501st had to say about this world.
On Felucia, the Seps dug their metal heels into the muck of that alien hellhole and dared the Republic to come in after them. So we did.
And another planet where the Acklay was a threat was Geonosis, in the massive execution arena of the Geonosians, which honestly is the most merciful thing they could do to you. I mean, would you rather have a quick death in the execution arena, or be slowly worked to death in the double suns of the Geonosis desert as a slave for the hives of the planet, with constant threats from rock slides and sandstorms? But trust me when I say, there are far worse crowds than this, like that found on Nal Hutta. This is the homeworld of the Hutts, the biggest crime syndicate of the galaxy, which was also a swamp-infested stinkhole with dragon snakes and other deadly creatures. And if all of this wasn't enough, you were at risk of hearing the singing of Snai Snoodles, which was enough to kill most people on sight. One thing that every planet so far has had for them is the liberty of at least being in one piece. The same cannot be said for Lola Sayu, the home of the Separatist Citadel during the Clone Wars, but it would be much better to be trapped inside this prison than the hell that awaited you outside. This purple and yellow planet had suffered from an unknown catastrophe, which revealed its core years ago, causing the planet to unravel. The surface was therefore covered in cracks that exposed molten lava from the Sea of Sulfur covering the southern side of the planet. So slipping on this planet was a complete death sentence. And let me know in the comments if there are any of these planets that you would go to despite the danger because of how good the vibes are. Speaking of frostbite, hypothermia, and wampas, next up we have Hoth, where, oh yeah, that's right, I pretty much just covered it all in one sentence, but basically, unless you didn't have a tauntaun carcass to be stuffed into, the temperatures on this planet were absolutely unbearable for any major sentient life to be sustained here. The same cannot be said for Kashyyyk, which housed the iconic Wookiee species but also was not somewhere you would want to be without a guide. Underneath the massive Rocher trees lay some of the worst creatures in Star Wars. The spider-like web weavers and Wyshock could be enough to make me want to leave, but there were other threats like the Katarn species and Shadowlands that were shrouded in darkness and supposed dark energies. If you managed to be Star Wars Tarzan and survive this all, then you would sadly drown in the flash floods caused from the unpredictable weather of Kashyyyk. That is pretty tragic, I can't lie. That means less potential subscribers for me. Speaking of less subscribers, I'm about to mention a planet from the sequels, which is pretty much a death sentence for me as a YouTuber, because it means half of you just clicked off because I consider this lore.
If one is to understand the great mystery, one must study all its aspects.
For those who stayed, thank you. I appreciate you. But that planet I'm referring to is Exegol, which was covered in rocky terrain where the only light source was the constant static lightning that barraged the surface. This means there was little to no life that existed on Exegol. You might think you know many of these planets so far, but there's more. Our next planet is Maldo Kreis, which might have the smallest chance of survival so far. Now, if you had a powerful enough heat source like on Hoth, this planet would be potentially survivable, except that there is one species here that basically makes you a walking snack. That is the giant ice spiders that infested the vast cave systems of the planet, which completely dominated the ecosystem on this world. At least our next planet actually had people, except never mind, I think I'll take the ice spiders over the Dathomir Night Sister witches, who were essentially a threat to anyone that wasn't the Night Brothers they coexisted with. There are two aspects that make this planet literally the worst place to possibly visit because of the life on it. One is the dark side energy, which was sometimes used by the Night Sisters to create undead soldiers from their fallen witches and let them control the life around them. And our second point is just that. The life on this planet had horrifying creatures such as the Rancors, which were actually native to Dathomir. Now imagine Dathomir's environment, but it's always nighttime, and instead of Rancors, there are bioluminescent sarlacc pits known as Vixis. We are talking about Umbara. Your greatest risks here are the airborne banshee predators, which paired with the Vixis and aggressive plant life like Death's Embrace, which could lock you in an inescapable grip with its dark tendrils. Also, the Umbaran people were not particularly friendly to outsiders and had an entire military adapted to the unique environment of this hellscape. Speaking of which, the literal embodiment of hell is Mustafar. But real quick, here's the Christian advice of this video. If you want to get back to the main video, then you can skip to this time right here. Now today we are actually looking at Matthew 12:49 through 50, where it says, "And pointing to his disciples, he said, 'Here are my mother and my brothers, for whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother.'" This is the word of the Lord, thanks be to God. Now this is where in fact his family comes up when he's talking with his disciples, and they're like, why aren't you talking to your family? And basically the meaning I got from this is those around you who obey the will of God are honestly more like family than your actual family, which for some people is hard to accept. For some people, that is your family, but it definitely depends on the situation, and I just want some of you who might have been feeling that way around certain people that are really helpful in your life, that, oh, this almost feels more like my family than my actual family, maybe that is a sign. Just a consideration. But getting back to the video, just a quick reminder that you can subscribe if you do enjoy this content, because it does really help me out, and I would appreciate it as well. But yeah, let's get back to the video. Mustafar, which might not be the planet that is the hardest to survive, that honor I would give to either Maldo Kreis or Dathomir, but it was this one that would kill you the quickest. However, there was one aspect of the planet that was far worse than what any fans will give it credit for. This isn't the unsurvivable heat, the deadly creatures like the Shur-Kar, or even the presence of the Black Sun crime syndicate, but rather the massive ground quakes that would split open the planet's continents. Like, imagine being safe in one of these facilities, and then the whole thing is shaken right into the lava. And even though this never happened to Anakin and Obi-Wan, there are 20 different secrets from their duel on Mustafar that you will never know about unless you click here to find out for free right now.